viewers and listeners, to the Health Revolution, the program that shows you how to have a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity. In a sea of fads, we reveal the science-backed strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery. These are the keys to an enriched life. Join us for inspiring interviews with champions who conquered life's health challenges, fueling your journey. Are you ready to unlock your potential? To live with vitality and purpose? Then join the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest. Together, we're about to change the game, starting now. The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Welcome, everybody, to the Health Revolution. We are so glad that you're joining us today. Whether you're catching the live broadcast or on-demand replay, we are thankful you are here for this intentional conversation. Now, don't forget to hit the subscribe button in no matter which way you're tuning in, Roku TV, Apple TV, Android TV, LinkedIn, you as well. And then, of course, all the different social media platforms. We are grateful for the growth and you're leaning in with all that is important that we highlight. Now let's get into it. Today's topic is all about sustainable excellence. And it's not just the goals that we reach in life. It is all areas, all four corners of our life, the health and the wellness factors, in addition to reaching above and beyond. We have an incredible guest for you today, someone who you are going to want to lean into and take those notes. So take a look at this. Let's get to know who he is. In the arena of life, some individuals redefine the essence of strength and purpose. Today, we introduce Terry Tucker, a man whose multifaceted journey through adversity has crafted a narrative of true resilience and sustainable excellence. A former NCAA Division I basketball player, Terry carried the discipline and teamwork from the court into his varied professional life, embracing roles from marketing executive to hostage negotiator, coach to business owner. But it's his battle against cancer, a trial that demanded unwavering courage, leading to the amputation of his foot and later his leg, that has underscored his incredible fortitude. Terry's wisdom crystallizes in his book, Sustainable Excellence: 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, a guide that empowers others to forge paths marked by passion and determination. His message is not merely one of survival, but of thriving against the odds and leading a life that transcends the ordinary. An international podcast guest, a beacon for motivation and mindset, Terry Tucker's voice has echoed across global platforms, inspiring change and boldness. This is the story of Terry Tucker, a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Terry Tucker, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am great, Adriana. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
You know, it's incredible the journey that you've been through and the different roles that you've had. And I love the fact that we're diving into all of this. Take us through NCAA basketball to where you are today as a motivational speaker and author. What were the steps along the way that created the path where you are today?
I think, in all honesty, it really started with my parents. I am the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall and played college basketball at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. I've got a brother who's 6'7", who was a pitcher for the University of Notre Dame. Another brother who's 6'6", who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers, the National Basketball Association. And then my dad was 6'5". So we used to joke that if you sat behind our family in church growing up, not a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on in front of you. But our mom and dad really set the tone for us. They taught us the value of family, of loving each other, of caring for each other, of supporting each other. And they used to do what I call divide and conquer parenting, where it was like I would have a game on a Thursday night at 5 o'clock at this location, and my brother would have a practice at another location at the exact same time. So dad's going with me, mom's going with my brother. Our whole family revolved around sports. And it was just an amazing childhood. I have nothing bad to say about growing up. And that literally led into the things that I've experienced in life, the adversity and things like that. My mom and dad were like, hey, we're all in this together. And when I had knee surgery in high school, my family was there for me. Now that I've had cancer for the last 12 years, my family has been there for me. So really it started with my family. And then the last thing I'll say about this is this. One of the things that I learned from being part of a team, and I started playing basketball when I was 9, played all the way up till I was 21, was the importance of being part of something that's bigger than yourself. You realize on a team that if you don't do your job, not only do you let yourself down, but your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down. And if you think about it, the biggest team game we all play is this game of life.
And that's true. And I couldn't agree with you more. All that you're saying are the foundations of how we get to move forward. Take us through the breakthroughs that you had with NCAA basketball and then moving on to the next chapter of your life. Because so it didn't go further than that. You didn't attempt to enter the NBA. What was going on and what led you to the choices that you made?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody dreams of playing on the professional level, being the best of the best. I had 3 knee surgeries in high school. 2 of them were pre-arthroscopic surgery. So I have the large zipper scar on the outside of my right knee. So just going to college, playing Division I basketball was something I never expected to do, but had that opportunity. And I played at a small Division I school called the Citadel, a military college in South Carolina, but got to play against great competition. I played against Michael Jordan his freshman year at North Carolina. I played against Jim Valvano and North Carolina State the year before they won the national championship. So it was just an enriching, tremendously grateful experience that I had to be able to do that. And so after that, it was, now what do I do with my life? And I wanted to follow in my grandfather's footsteps. My grandfather was a Chicago police officer from 1924 to 1954. He was actually shot in the line of duty with his own gun. It was not a serious injury. He was shot in the ankle. But my dad, who was an infant at the time, always remembered the stories my grandmother told growing up of that knock on the door. Mrs. Tucker, grab your son, come with us, your husband's been shot. So when I expressed an interest in going into law enforcement, my dad was, absolutely not. You're going to college, you're going to major in business, get out, get a great job, get married, have 2.4 kids, and live happily ever after. But that's the life my father wanted me to live. That's not the life I felt I was supposed to live. And when I graduated from college, my dad was dying of cancer. So I had a choice. I could have said, sorry, Dad, I'm going to go blaze my own trail. I know you're dying. Or out of love and respect for you, I will do what you want me to do. So if you look at my resume, my first 2 jobs were in business because that's what my dad wanted. And I kind of joke, I did what every good son did. I waited till my father passed away, and then I followed my own dreams.
What were some of the teaching elements that you had at that time when you made that decision that, okay, my heart is leading me in one direction, and yet I'm going to honor what my father wants me to do? What were some of the components that were part of that decision-making process?
Yeah, my dad did what he did, not out of spite, but out of love. He wanted what he felt was something better for me than a career in law enforcement. And again, I'll take it back to my time with our family, my time with my parents growing up. Their entire life revolved around the 3 boys. They gave us everything, whether it was educational opportunities, athletic opportunities, vacations we went on. They were there for us through it all. And so when it came time, it really wasn't a hard decision for me. When it came time to make that decision, if it would have taken 30 years, it took 3.5 years for my father to pass away. If it would have taken 30 years, I would have been there for 30 years because that's what we were taught. That's what a family was about. Loving each other, caring for each other, supporting each other. Our parents taught us that. Now it was time for me and my brothers to reciprocate with that because at the same time my father was dying, my grandmother was dying of a different form of cancer. So my mother, I mean, in one room, her husband's dying. In another room, her mother's dying. So how horrible was that for her? We needed to be there to support her and the people that were literally giving up the ghost at that time.
So I have to ask, because this is something I know you and I talked before broadcast about your story. What helped your family to navigate and process the emotions? Because this is definitely, it's a lot for any family to take when you have that surmountable loss that is just pretty heavy.
Yeah, it was, and we were not a huggy kissy kind of family. We didn't tell each other we loved each other all the time. We showed each other that we loved each other. Although I'll be honest with you, I kissed my father goodnight, every night until the day that he died. And sometimes I wonder if that was just so my dad could make sure I wasn't drinking and could smell alcohol on my breath. But that's something else. But it was we knew what love looked like. And it wasn't something we needed to say. It was something we needed to manifest. And we did that with our family. And we cried and we hugged and we, swore and said, this is not fair, and all the kind of things you did. But at the end of the day, it was when it was time to pony up and say, okay, dad needs a ride. I mean, my life, literally, I lived at home during this time. I was sleeping in the same bed I slept in when I was in high school. I would get up in the morning, empty my father's urinal, get dressed, go to work. At lunch, I would come home, help my mom get my father dressed, take him to his job, get him in his office, get back in my car, go back to my job, and then flip that around. At 5 o'clock, I would leave, go to my dad's office, get him, put him in the car, and bring him home because he needed something to do. He needed a purpose. That's one thing I learned from my father. He had end-stage breast cancer back in the 1980s. They didn't know how to treat a man with breast cancer back then, and they told him to go home and die. But he lived another 3.5 years, and I believe he did because he had a purpose. He was in real estate, and he actually worked up till 2 weeks before he died. And so I sort of tucked that in the back of my mind and said, well, when it's my turn in the barrel, I need to have that purpose. And he did. And I think that kept him going. If he hadn't had that purpose, my guess is he would have died a whole lot earlier.
So as you were making new decisions after he had passed, what were some of your takeaways from the roles that you had back then? So you delved into business, you helped to hold down the fort at home. What were some of your takeaways as you were making more choices to decide what your path was going to look like?
Yeah, I remember I had a conversation with my father before he died. My youngest brother was in high school and he had a basketball game. It was a Friday night, and I hadn't worked out very much that week. So I told my dad, I said, I'm not going to go to Brian's game. I'm going to go work out after work. My dad looked at me and said, no, you're not. You're going to the game. And I was kind of taken aback. It's like, I'm a man. I have a job. What do you mean? I can do what I want to do. I said, no, Dad, I'm going to go work out. He said, no, you're going to the game. He said, you understand what our family is about. Your brother needs you there. Your brother needs your support. And my father was right. I was being a jerk. I was just trying to sort of flex my own muscle and say, I can do what I want to do. He was right. And I ended up finding another reason, another time to go and work out. And I actually did go to the game to support my brother. And the other conversation I had was with our next door neighbor. One of the things my father told me before he died was, make sure you take care of your mother. And my dad died when he was 54. My mom's a little bit younger than my dad. And my mom's still alive. She'll be 89 years old today. And that rings in my mind every day. Take care of your mother. Make sure your mother's okay. And I was living at home. I was cutting the grass. I was shoveling the snow. I was helping with groceries. I was doing all that. And our next door neighbor came over and she said, Terry, at some point in time, you've got to start living your life. And I was really conflicted with that. It was, well, I know, but mom needs me now. But yes, I would like to start to date. I would like to start to do other things in my life. And so I kind of really got to a point where I knew she was right. I ended up buying a house that was close to my mom so I could still do the things that she needed for me. But it was time for me at that point to start to get on with living my life.
So you entered law enforcement, and take us through the decisions you made with that. So that was a calling of yours. You felt led to step into that professional role. And how did you manage the change from the habits that you had in taking care of your dad and then business, but then switching, because I would imagine stress levels would look different in that new role.
Uh, they did. They did. And one of the things that I am most proud of in my life, and I don't want to sound conceited, but there were several times along my professional journey where I could have said, you know what, I'm making good money. I'm comfortable in this job. I can just stay here. But I never let my dream die of being in law enforcement. And I was a 37-year-old rookie police officer when I got into that, which is pretty old to be getting into that line of work. And at the time, my wife and I were living in California, and we got a circular in the mail for Santa Barbara City College. And I never looked at those things. But one day at lunch, I'm kind of paging through it, and I see this: you can take this class. And if you pass the class, you can apply to be a reserve, sort of a part-time police officer with any agency within the state of California. So you can imagine that conversation at dinner. My wife had married me when I was a suit and tie, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of guy. And I'm like, hey, hon, I'd like to do this. And my wife has been incredibly supportive of me. And she said, take the class. What the heck? I mean, see how it goes. I took the class. I got on with Santa Barbara PD. I would work I was a customer service manager for an academic publishing company. Excuse me. And I would work all week. I'd come home Friday night. I'd put on my uniform. I'd go to roll call, and I would work all night as a police officer. And I would come home Saturday morning, and my wife tells the story better than I do. But she said, you would be exhausted, but had this tremendous grin on your face. And she said, I knew that was what you were supposed to do. So shortly after that, our daughter was born, and we moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. And I looked at her and I said, look, I want to do this full time. And she supported me in doing that. And so I went from, like I said, a suit and tie kind of guy to working nights. And I was a drug investigator. I was on the SWAT team. It was a blast. I loved it, but I could not have done it without the support of my family.
Can you share with us a moment in which a life lesson, you had a takeaway moment in one of those law enforcement roles that you had within your police career, your law enforcement career? What was a profound moment that had a life lesson that is still with you today?
Yeah, we work, my partner and I. Cincinnati pretty much runs single person cars, but for the areas that aren't the best in terms of crime and things like that, they run double cars. And my wife, my beat wife, pretty much, my partner and I were one of those double cars. And we had a lot of drugs, a lot of guns, a lot of violence on our beat. And there was this one kid, and he was a kid, and he used to hang around with all the dope boys, the kids who sold dope. And he wasn't a bad kid, and he didn't have a bad record. All he did was drive without a driver's license, which in Ohio is a misdemeanor of the first degree. It's the highest misdemeanor you can have. So my partner and I kind of developed this plan. And so we roll up on the dope boys one day, and they all scatter. We grab this guy, and we handcuff him. We put him in the back of our car, and we take him up behind the tennis courts of the high school. And I'm sure he was like, what the heck is going on here? We took him out, we unhandcuffed him, we said, here's the deal. Said, you need $500 to reinstate your driver's license within the state of Ohio. My partner and I are willing to pay that for you. You also need your GED. We have somebody lined up that will get you into that program to get your GED. And you also need a job. And we have somebody that is willing to employ you. If you keep hanging around with these dope boys, you're going to end up just like them. This is an opportunity for you to get out of this and do something that can be positive in your life. What do you want to do? And he said no. And he walked away from us. And shortly after that, I went to the drug unit. My partner followed me to the drug unit. And about 18 months later, he was convicted of an armed robbery and got like 8 years in the state pen and is a felon now. And I think about him all the time. You know, if he would have said yes to us, I know why he said no. I mean, he grew up in that area. These people the dope boys were his friends, the people he grew up with. That's a tremendous draw, a tremendous pull on somebody to say, hey, get out of that life, totally change your life, and do something productive in your life. He didn't have the strength of character to be able to do that. I get it, but at least we felt we gave him an opportunity. It was up to him to whether he wanted to take it or not.
Wow, what a powerful story. We're going to go ahead and take a commercial break. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. So let's talk about something we often overlook, but it's vital for our health, and that is hydration. Now, hydration is more than just drinking water. It's about keeping our bodies functioning optimally. So every cell, tissue, and organ in our body needs water to work properly. It aids in digestion and keeps our skin radiant, and even helps regulate our body temperature. So how do we stay on top of our hydration game? Well, first aim for about 8 to 10 glasses of water daily, but listen to your body's cues. If you're active or if it's hot outside, you might need more. Secondly, incorporate water-rich foods into your food intake. So think cucumbers, watermelon, and strawberries. Not only are they tasty, but they're hydrating as well. And don't forget, it's not just about water. Herbal teas and coconut water are great alternative examples to keep things interesting. Now, my favorite hack is a natural electrolyte combination where you take a tall glass of water, you add a slice of lemon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt. Remember, staying hydrated is a simple, powerful way to boost your health and vitality. Stay hydrated, stay healthy, and this is your Fit Bite for today.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back to the show. Our guest today is Terry Tucker, motivational speaker and author of the book Sustainable Excellence. And we are applying all things that optimizes our lives. And before we went to break, Terry, you were telling a quite riveting story of someone who had the opportunity to say yes, someone who didn't have the most upstanding background in terms of opportunities, and then they said no. So I do commend you for just sharing that message and being able to throw it out there to say, listen, this is a lifeline per se. What allowed you, so take us through becoming a law enforcement officer, working on the beat, and then obviously you have a history of being in the the hostage negotiator role. And so how much time did you spend in law enforcement, and what also transitioned you to then become a motivational speaker?
Yeah, so I was in law enforcement for about 10 years total, with my time in Santa Barbara and in Cincinnati. And it was, being part of this on the SWAT team. usually the SWAT teams in most law enforcement organizations are the best officers with the best training and the best equipment. And so I've always wanted to be part of the best in my life. So when they had an opening as a negotiator, I put in for it and had to do a physical fitness test, had to meet with the psychologist, had to take psychological exams, meet with the command staff, and then meet with the team. And it was an all or nothing. If one person on the team said, hey, I've worked with Terry before and he's really difficult to work with, I don't think he would make a good addition to our team, then you got the thumbs down. And so it was either everybody gave you the thumbs up or you didn't make the team. And so I was fortunate enough to do that. And, a lot of times you think, okay, I know a lot of stuff. I didn't. My very first training, we used to train doing scenarios. And it was a very simple scenario, hostage with a hostage taker behind a locked door. I spent the entire time talking to the hostage. And when it came time for the debrief, they were like, you do understand that we're negotiating with the hostage taker. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of figured that out. I guess I have a lot to learn. So there was a tremendous learning curve for me in that. But that got me to a point where people started to suggest, especially since I've had this 12-year battle with cancer, that you should take your coaching experience, you should take your athletic experience, you should take your hostage negotiating experience and your cancer journey and talk to people about that. But I'm pretty much a very private individual. It's been incredibly difficult for me to do that. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll put my toe in the water. I'll start a speaking business. And then COVID hit. And then a friend of mine reached out to me and he was like, hey, Terry, how about, I know you can't do things in person. How about you come on my podcast and be a guest? And I said, sure. What's a podcast? I had absolutely no idea what a podcast was. And he explained it to me. And I said, well, okay, I'll try that, see what happens. I was so nervous. I had Post-it notes all around the camera. And he would ask me a question and I would lean in and I'd read one of the Post-it notes. I was terrible. I was horrible. I provided no value to the audience whatsoever. But then I thought, well, the first time I drove a car, was I any good at it? No. First time I cooked a meal, was I any good at it? No. First time I studied algebra, was I any good at it? No. So I thought, I'd like to do this. And so I really started delving into this. And I remember I was telling my publisher, I said, Scott, I listened to every podcast I've been on. I want to have better stories. I want to see how many times I say or whatever. And he said, no, Terry, it's not about being good. It's just about not sucking. And I said, well, thanks for the title of my next book, Just Don't Suck. No, not really. That's not what it's going to be. But it was like, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to provide value to the host and to the audience. And almost 700 podcasts later, I realize you're a television show and this is a little bit different, but trying to get a positive message out to individuals is really something I'm passionate about.
So many people struggle with a cancer diagnosis and their cancer journey, and it really takes you through uncharted territory. What was it like for you when you discovered this was going to be part of your journey?
Scary. I had a callus break open on the bottom of my foot when I was coaching girls high school basketball when we lived in Texas. And I didn't think much of it because as a coach, you're on your feet a lot. But after a few weeks of it not healing, I made an appointment and went to see a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine. And he took an x-ray and he said, Terry, I think you have a cyst in there and I can cut it out. And he did. And he showed it to me. It was just a little gelatin sac with some white fat in it. No dark spots, no blood, nothing that gave either one of us concern. But fortunately or unfortunately, he sent it off to pathology to have it looked at. And then 2 weeks later, I received that call, which certainly changed my life and the life of my family. And as I said, he was a friend of mine. And the more difficulty he was having explaining to me what was going on, the more frightened I was becoming. Until finally he just laid it out for me. He said, Terry, I've been a doctor for 25 years, and I have never seen the form of cancer you have. You have an incredibly rare form of melanoma. And most people think of melanoma as too much exposure to the sun. It affects the melanin, the pigment in our skin. Mine has nothing to do with that. It appears on the bottom of the feet or the palms of the hands. And I absolutely went through all the stages that we would associate with grief. First it was denial. I can't possibly have cancer. I mean, since my dad's cancer, I've done everything right. Eaten right, gotten physical exams, taken the test my doctors recommended. How can I possibly have cancer? And then I got mad. You get to a point where I've done everything right. How can I possibly have cancer? And then there was a point where our daughter was in high school when I was diagnosed, and there was sort of a bargaining with God. Hey, just let me live long enough to see our daughter graduate from high school. And then I absolutely got depressed. I was down. I felt sorry for myself. And then I came out the other end with, you know what? I don't like these cards that I've been dealt, but I'm going to have to play these cards to the best of my ability. And when I was diagnosed, I was told that more than likely I'd be dead in 2 years. So I was given a death sentence, and I thought, well, whatever time I have left, maybe I could turn that death sentence into a life sentence.
How did you process that? Because when we get blindsiding news, when it comes at us in a blunt fashion, it can be paralyzing to say the very least. So the fact that the specialist said this is what we see is all that you have left, how did you process this? And then your level of acceptance, what was your takeaway? What helped you become resilient in leaning forward and moving one foot in front of the other?
I think three things. And I talk about my three F's, which are faith, family, and friends. I have a very strong faith in God. And when I was diagnosed, I had people who were like, well, you got cancer. That's terrible. You're 51 years old. You're young. Who do you blame? I'm like, what do you mean? Who do I blame? Well, you must blame somebody. We're great here about, I've seen so many people start down the path towards a goal or a dream and they butt up against an impediment. Something gets in their way. They can't get over it, around it, or through it. And so they quit. But we just don't quit. Now we got to blame somebody. We got to blame our parents or our station in life or our boss. Very few people take personal responsibility for their own success and happiness. So I've had a very strong faith in God. So I'm like, I don't blame anybody. And then when people find out I had a faith life, they were like, well, you must blame God. And I used to joke with them like, no, I don't think God got up on a Tuesday morning, checked his to-do list and said, hey, Terry Tucker cancer today. But I do believe God has given me the strength to move forward through this 12-year journey. And then my family, and as I mentioned, it's my wife and daughter and I remember after I had my leg amputated in 2020, my doctor wanted to put me on chemotherapy. And I said to him, is it going to save my life? He said, probably not, but it might buy you some more time. And I said, well, I would rather not take the chemotherapy if I know I'm going to die anyway. I'd rather enjoy that time, but I'll go home and talk to my family. And it really did happen this way. It's kind of a funny story. And so I get home, I start telling my wife and daughter, and my daughter's immediately like, all right, we need a family meeting. I'm like, family meeting? There's three of us. It's not like we got a board here or something like that, So we sit around the table and individually talk about how we feel about me having chemotherapy. And then when we're done with that, our daughter's like, all right, let's take a vote. How many people want dad to have chemotherapy? And my wife and daughter raised their hand. I'm like, wait a minute. Am I getting outvoted for something that I don't want to do? But I remembered when I was back in the police academy, our defensive tactics instructor used to have us bring a photograph of the people we loved the most to class. And as we were learning techniques to defend ourselves, we were to look at that photograph because he reasoned you will fight harder for the people you love than you will fight for yourself. So I took chemotherapy not because I wanted to, but because my family wanted me to, and I love them more than I love myself. And in hindsight, it was the right thing to do. It was the bridge that got me to the drug that I'm on now. And then just finally, friends. Adriana, there were people that I was 100% sure when I got sick or something bad happened, they would be there for me. And so many of them had to back off. They're like, no, I can't deal with the fact that you're probably dying. And then there were people that I never expected to be in my corner that have never left me during this 12-year journey. So I've been very fortunate with faith, family, and friends that has gotten me through this journey.
Where are you today in your cancer journey?
Still have tumors in my lungs. I had my foot amputated in 2018, my leg amputated in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Still have tumors in my lungs that I'm treated for every 3 weeks. Go to the hospital every day for a week, get 2 weeks off. And I'm on a clinical trial drug now that does nothing to the cancer. But the way cancer proliferates in our body is it secretes a protein, an enzyme that hides itself from our own immune system. And what this trial drug does is wipes out, gets rid of that enzyme and protein so that my own body can say, just like if you had a cold virus or a flu virus, hey, that doesn't belong here. We need to go attack it. And so that's what my body is the one that's actually dealing with the cancer. It's been 3 years since I've been on this drug. Unfortunately, everybody I started on the trial with has passed away. So I'm kind of the last man standing, but it's keeping the tumors in my lungs stable.
And your thought process right now, today, as we're talking about this, what would you tell those who are in the middle of a cancer battle, maybe a loved one, if it's not them? What would you say? What has helped you in terms of your level of resilience and the story you tell yourself?
The story I tell myself is this story, and it's a true story. It happened back in the 1950s at Johns Hopkins University here in the United States. There was a professor that did an experiment with rats. And he took rats and he put them in a tank of water that was over their head. And he wanted to see how long the average rat would tread water. And the average rat treaded water for about 15 minutes. And just as those rats were getting ready to sink and drown, he reached in, grabbed them, pulled them out, dried them off, and let them rest for a while. And then he took the exact same rats and put them back in that exact same tank of water. And the second time around, on average, those rats treaded water for 60 hours. Now think about that. The first time, 15 minutes. It's not like your business is going to go under or you're going to flunk a test. You're going to die. Your life is going to be over. And the second time around, 60 hours, which taught me two things. Number one, the importance of hope in our lives. That if you know you're doing the right thing, maybe not today, maybe not this month, maybe not even this year, but at some point in time, more than likely, not 100%, but more than likely, you'll get to where you want to be. And the second thing it taught me was just how much more our physical bodies can handle than we ever thought they could. We quit, we give up, we give in long before our physical bodies are really need to, because our brains are telling us, hey, this hurts, this is uncomfortable, stop doing that. And so we quit, we give in. If you can callous your mind, if you can harden your mind, and people, how do you do that? Very simple. One thing every day that scares you, makes you nervous, makes you uncomfortable, is potentially embarrassing. I do it every day. Do one of those things every day. And when the big disasters in life hit us, and they hit all of us, we lose somebody who's close to us, we unexpectedly get let go from our job, we find out we have a chronic or a terminal illness, you'll be so much more resilient to handle that pain when it presents itself.
So you've been a motivational speaker for some time. So I have to ask, how do you balance the vulnerability of telling your story with the strength that's necessary to inspire others?
I think you just have to be genuine. You just kind of have to put it out there. And I don't want anybody to think that I sit here and say, I've got all the answers. I don't. All I'm saying is I've learned some things along this journey that I would like to offer to you. And if those things work for you, then by all means take them, incorporate them into your life. If they don't, that's okay too. But the only way you're good as a podcast host or a podcast guest or a TV guest or a speaker is if you open yourself up to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there and say, hey, yeah, I made a mistake here. I'm not Superman. I mean, you're looking at me right now. There's no S on my chest. I do not fly around with a cape and have magical powers. I'm just a man. And I've been through hell. And as Winston Churchill, the former prime minister of Great Britain, used to say, if you're going through hell, keep going. And that's what I try to do. I just try to keep going one day at a time. And as I learn things, I try to just offer them to other people. Again, not with the understanding that I know everything, but with this is something that's worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you as well.
Quite incredible. We're going to take a break. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
And now we want to give special thanks to Biomed Mobile IV for sponsoring the health revolution. Biomed Mobile IV is Colorado's top mobile IV therapy service, servicing throughout the state of Colorado. They offer an array of vitamins and above and beyond safety preparation. Biomed Mobile IV, your dedication to health and wellness is exactly what our show is all about. And we thank you for your support. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back to our show. Our guest today, Terry Tucker, motivational speaker and author of his book, Sustainable Excellence. And before the break, Terry, you were sharing about your cancer journey and where you are today. And I do have to say that your level of resilience is extremely commendable and inspiring in so many different ways. And very grateful that you're sharing your story. And now I want to talk about your book, Sustainable Excellence. Talk to us about how you got started in writing and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, I never really wanted to write a book. There's sort of an old joke that says when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So God has never talked to me and said, hey, Terry, you should write a book. But I think what God did for me is started to put people in my path that were making the same suggestion over and over and over. You should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book. And so I think I'm smart enough to sort of buck up and listen to that and say, okay, maybe I should pay attention. Sustainable Excellence was really born out of 2 conversations I had. One was with a former player that I had coached in high school who had moved to the area in Colorado where my wife and I live with her fiance. And the 4 of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. And she got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she said, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? I said, I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth, and there is a reason, using your unique gifts and talents and living that reason. So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man reach out to me on social media, and he asked me what I thought were the most important things that he should learn, not to just be successful in his job or in business, but to be successful in life. And Adriana, I didn't want to give him that, get up early, work hard, help others kind of thing. I wanted to see if I could go deeper with him. And so I spent some time, took some notes, kind of had these 10 ideas, these 10 thoughts, these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath that principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates this principle. So literally during the months that I was healing after I had my leg amputated, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the principles. And that's how Sustainable Excellence came to be.
So when did you write the book? And talk to us a little bit about the 4 truths.
2020, I wrote the book. I had my leg amputated, so I wrote it during that time. And it was just a great experience. I having never written a book, I had no idea what I was doing. So I gave myself, all right, I'm going to write 1 page every day, and I'm not going to edit anything until I have a first draft. So those are kind of my 2 rules to writing the book. The 4 truths are things that I've kind of coalesced around really over my whole life. And I have them on a post-it note here. So I constantly have them reinforced in my mind every day. So here they are. And they're one sentence each. Number one is control your mind, or your mind is going to control you. Number two, embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life, and use that pain and difficulty to make you a stronger and more resilient individual. Number three is more of a legacy type of truth. And it's this: what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And then number four, I think is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And I call these four truths sort of the bedrock of my soul. They're, I think, just a good place to try to start to build a quality life off of.
And as you share this with others, I want to see if we can bring the book back up, the shot of the book, so our viewers can see what are additional takeaways. What would you tell the reader, someone who picks up this book and wants to lead that type of life where sustainable excellence is profound? Where do they start?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always get, so you wrote this book, Sustainable Excellence. What is excellence? And my response is, I don't know. It's like, what do you mean you don't know? You wrote the book. How could you possibly not know what excellence is? And my response to that is, I think excellence, like beauty, is sort of in the eye of the beholder. You and I may look at an athletic team or a certain doctor or a school, and you may say, hey, those people are excellent. We say, yeah, I think they're good, but I don't think they're excellent. So I think you have to define excellence in your life. Okay, so once you've done that, then how do you sustain excellence? And what happens when people get to sort of the top of the mountain? They sit back, they put their feet up on the desk, they pour themselves a drink, and they're like, hey, I've arrived, I've made it. And then what happens? 6 months, a year from now, boom, somebody passes them up, and they're like, whoa, what happened? What happened is you didn't sustain that excellence. You didn't continue to grow. You didn't continue to innovate. You didn't continue to find a new market to deliver your services to. So people get to the top, and then they kind of sit back. If you want to sustain excellence, you need to keep moving. You need to keep innovating. You need to keep finding other people to deliver your product to. So that would be one thing I would say. And the other thing, and I am absolutely guilty of this many times in my life, is that there's a chapter in the book, there's a principle in the book, and it's this: most people think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. And I know I've done that in my life. I know I wanted to start something. Wait a minute, maybe I don't have enough information, or maybe I'm not smart enough, or what will people say about me if I fail? That's thinking with our fears and our insecurities. That's not thinking with our minds. And whenever I talk to especially younger groups, I always tell them, there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you. Go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things that you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be those things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them.
You know, you bring up a good point in that if there is something, or if there is a path that's exciting and scary at the same time, that is the thing that you're supposed to be doing. And it's a message that's resonated, especially in these last couple of years since COVID has hit, where you find that it's something that is more pressed upon us all. Would you agree?
I would. I think if COVID has taught us anything, it's how much we need each other. I mean, you look at the isolation during COVID and what happened. Alcoholism rates went up, drug abuse rates went up, domestic violence rates went up. We are better together than we ever are apart. And that's another thing when I talk to young people, I always tell them, if you remember nothing else that I say, remember this: your life is going to be shaped by the 5 most important people you hang around with. If you hang around with people that are smart, that are outgoing, that want better things for their life, you'll be smart, you'll be outgoing, and you'll want better things for your life. Whereas if you hang around people that are always negative, it's all about them, there's always drama in their life, then that's what your life is going to look like. So be very careful with the type of people you hang around with. Surround yourself with people that make you better. There's that old quote that says, if you're the smartest person in the room, find another room.
100%. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this.
Greetings, I'm Angel Marie Monticelli, host of Energize You TV, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. Go to Fresh Takes right here on E360 and get Reikified and energized today.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back, everybody. My guest today, Terry Tucker, motivational speaker, author of the book Sustainable Excellence. Terry, as you are looking ahead, what do you see your path? Where do you see your path going these next couple of years? And what are you currently working towards or working on?
I'm working on another book. Sustainable Excellence is a book about success and how I see people can be successful. I'm working on another book that starts with another word that begins with S, and that's significance. Success is what we do for ourselves. Significance is what we do for other people. Now, don't get me wrong. I think you can be successful and significant at the same time. But I'm working on this other book, which has been a love and a hate relationship going on. I think being on all this chemotherapy medicine is really kind of hurting me in terms of trying to develop the book, but I'll get there. It'll work out. I'm under no time frame. So I'm doing that. And as things since COVID have started to open up speaking wise, I'm doing more speaking. I mean, I am an amputee. I am in a wheelchair. So getting around makes things difficult. So speaking locally here in Denver, I've spoken to a hospital for spinal cord and brain injuries. I've spoken to conventions where bankers have come to town. I've spoken to insurance groups, but I love speaking to younger people. They're just so open. They're so interested. They hang on your every word. They're like sponges. And you just want to say, hey, can I give you some stuff that maybe would resonate with you? So I just love talking with people. I love people. I just love people. I love being around them. I love learning from them. The things I enjoy reading in my life are biographies and autobiographies. What makes people tick? Why did you do what you did in that situation? I love understanding people. That was probably one of the attractions to being a hostage negotiator as well. But those are my plans for hopefully the next couple of years.
And even though we're running out of time, where can our viewers find you? Where are you on social media and on the internet?
I mean, the easiest place to find me is to go onto my website /blog. It's called motivationalcheck.com. You can leave me a message there. You can get access to all my social media sites. I have recommendations for books to read, videos to watch. That's all at motivationalcheck.com.
And what about different social media platforms, Facebook and such? Where are you?
On Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on X. Probably on something else that I'm forgetting right now, but most of the platforms you're probably familiar with.
Yes. And Terry, I appreciate you being here. This is obviously you are a wealth of knowledge, and I'm extremely inspired by your journey, your level of your optimism and in your level of resilience as you continue on your journey. Appreciate your time and inspiring us all.
Adriana, thank you very much for having me on. I really enjoyed talking with you today.
Yes. And for all our viewers, of course, you can find us here on the web. That's healthrevolutiontv.com. You can find more show information. If you know of topics that you really would love for us to cover and the incredible experts that we would love to bring forth to you, definitely let us know. You can also subscribe to our newsletter. Don't forget also, if you've got your phone out, you want to take a quick pic of our QR code. That's the quickest route to get to our website. website. And then, of course, we are on E360 on Tuesdays and Thursdays on a weekly basis, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And if you're catching the replay, we certainly appreciate you being here. That's all the time that we have. Until next time, take care. We will see you soon.